This is the second lecture for Chapter 18, Environmental Hazards and Human Risks, and we're just looking at some of the new emergent diseases that are coming along. We all are aware of some of these, but in the last, 100 some odd years, these really weren't necessarily a concern in a large scale, but all of these have become more prevalent in the news as of late, and we'll talk about these as we're moving along. So the first one is HIV and AIDS going hand in hand. Something we can look at here, which is very interesting, is there's about 6,000 new cases of AIDS occurring every single day on a global scale. So that's quite concerning. How is it spread from person to person? The first would be sexual contact between people. The second one would be drug use and sharing of needles. And a third one I'm not listing here, but also just be passing it from mother to child is a third way that could be spread. And as far as how this came to be, is it's most likely spread from contact with chimps, people going into the forest and killing chimpanzees or monkeys for the bushmeat. And somehow there was a connection there that's sprung from the monkeys or chimps to humans. So we mentioned here that HIV is the second biggest killer worldwide after the flu. So just something to be aware of there. And as far as some of the things that we could do to help reduce the numbers of infections are listed here below. I won't go and teach in all of these. Next one on our list was Ebola, which we don't think about or worry about too much here in the United States. We always kind of think it's something that happens over in Africa, and it has, but it is certainly a concern, and largely because of this part right here. The death rate is incredible. So when it does happen, usually there's a large quarantine to try to keep that from spreading past whatever particular location it's at. And it's very fast moving, so as we mentioned here, that death can occur in within a couple weeks, and unfortunately there is no cure for it. So if you get it, well, there's a high risk of death. Next one is, this one's quite disturbing, is again, a lot of these diseases can be sprung from animals onto humans, but this one's a different transmission. So it's a little unusual. It's a neurological disease, and its cause is by these prions, which are a protein in the brain. So it's okay. So how is that spread? And it's again, it's a weird transmission, and it's from eating the infected meat. So unlike a lot of diseases or pathogens, is if you cook them, then there's no worry. But that doesn't seem to be the case with these prions because it's a protein, I'm imagining. I'm not sure. But that's how it gets into people. But the weird thing is, well, how did all these cows get it? Because they're vegetarians. Cows don't eat meat. And this is the real sick thing that people do is, if you get an infected cow and it dies, well, you have some choices what you want to do with that dead carcass. And this happened in Great Britain, so they're asking us, like, well, how are all the other cows getting infected? It's like, well, we started feeding the dead cows to the other cows. And, there's all sorts of issues with that. But anyways, that's how it spread from cow to cow. And then I think it was in the early 90s that they had to go through all of these killings of all these cows because they were exposed to it. All right, bird flu. A lot of our flus come out of Asia, and I don't know if it's necessarily the birds, the amount of birds, the people. I'm not sure why it is, but that seems to be the case. And the H1N1, which is out right now this year in 2014, that is the virus, which is the flu that's flying right now, and it usually will spring from a bird to a human. And these viruses will cycle from year to year. Eventually they'll mutate, and then it's a new strand of that virus that comes around. But usually it starts off in this type of a situation where someone is, in proximity to birds, and eventually they become infected, and that goes from person to person from that point. Another one which is fairly new This came out around when I used to work for Oakland County Environmental Health, is West Nile virus, and it's thought of, with the mosquitoes, mosquitoes spreading the disease, but it comes from the birds too. So mosquitoes will give it to a bird, the bird becomes infected, carrying the disease, and then the mosquitoes may bite that bird again, and then it can bite a person, and then there you go. But it was a big issue early in the 90s, but it's calmed down a little bit. So we don't worry as much about it, and you can kind of see these numbers in the 2000s, early 2000s, it really spiked. And I don't recall exactly where this data is from or for, but in any case, it shows that it has gone down, but then again has come down as well. Next one, these are some other diseases, which some I mentioned, some we did not mention, that are floating around out there. So they have their particular locations, but they're not necessarily exclusive to those locations. So viral diseases, just be aware that what is caused by a virus and what's caused by a bacteria or a protozoa. But again, we mentioned before, this has come up a couple times, that the flu is the largest killer of people worldwide. This picture here, I debated whether or not to keep it in here. It's kind of disturbing. This little guy, poor little guy, looks like a zombie. And then also, these are the largest mosquitoes, if they were to scale, I've ever seen. I don't think they're actually to scale, but yeah, anyways. So this kind of shows the transmission and the development of malaria that this individual has, and the amount of people that it can kill in a year. And this statistic is frightening when you look at the longevity, how long this has been around. So why don't we have much malaria going on here in the United States? Do we have better pesticides or practices? No, we're just lucky. The mosquitoes or the plasmodium that is out there doesn't really exist up in these northern climates. So we seem to be protected by climate. Which starts introducing the idea of climate change and such. This is one of those small layers that's out there, but we don't have to worry about it too much. So what is effective as far as treating it, helping people? There's a lot of physical things that we can do, but chemically, this was one of the most effective things that we had on the market. But then we noticed it had some other issues, which we'll talk about later, and it was pulled from the market. And only a few different locations in the world actually still can use it, and because it's malaria, so it's very effective in treating malaria, so they are allowed to use it. So this gives a couple new terms here as far as ecological medicine. So when you think about medicine in general, what is it for? Well, it's for treating diseases or illnesses. Ecological medicine goes one step beyond that and looks at how is it transmitting from organism to organism, and that's listed up here somewhere, species to species. So we're looking at, okay, how is it transmitting, and what are some ways that we could prevent that spread? What can we do to try to limit these spreads? So it's an interesting branch of medicine. This one is very interesting. So, what else can we do to try to limit the spread of disease? And again, a lot of it has to do with how people have spread in locations they did not always used to be. So when you start going into the forest, you're not just finding new lands, you're also finding new pathogens that we didn't know were out there before, and then we get exposed to them. So if you stop going into the forests and cutting down forests, that could potentially limit the amount of exposure we have. And this goes right along with it too, as far as going into the forest. The other one listed over here, as far as trying to limit the amount of trade in both exotic species and in livestock. So when you start moving all of these organisms around, then you're just kind of mixing the pot of potential pathogens that are out there. So again, trying to not venture too far from what we have and where we're at. And the last one is, I've kind of listed it there as far as stop eating monkeys, which doesn't really need to go any further than that. But in some cultures, people eat bush meat. That's the name given for it, for eating these somewhat exotic animals. but people eat monkeys or monkey brains. One of the books out there, and I don't think we have it in our book, shows a picture of someone eating a monkey's brains, and it's it's just obviously disturbing. Anyways, this is a good place to take a break, and we'll pick up the next chapter or next lecture, number 3, in just a minute.